Going in three, two, and one. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Warrior Soul podcast. This is Chris Albert, and we're at episode number 64. And I've got an awesome guest for you today. It's Mr. Michael Levin. And Michael is the CEO of Business Ghost. He's also been a New York Times best-selling author, and he was a winning contestant on the Shark Tank. And we've got a lot to talk about today. First, I want to get a quick note from our sponsors, F-Bomb Nutrition. A lot of people want to do the ketogenic diet these days, but carrying around jars of fat just isn't going to work it. And F-Bomb makes these awesome portable packets of amazing, delicious, healthy oils. They've got avocado oil, olive oil, coconut oil, MCT oil. But what I love the most are their nut butters. They've got this amazing macadamia nut butter. It's like a macadamia nut cookie crushed up into a little packet that you can carry around with you. It's delicious. It doesn't have sugar. And if you want to try it out, you can go to fatissmartfuel.com and use the code WarriorSoul to get 20% off your first order. Now we're going to get into our conversation with Michael. And Michael, how you doing today, man?
Great. Thanks for having me on, Chris. Pleasure.
Out there in Brookline, Massachusetts. And, it seems like it's almost as if we're in this new time period where there's all these different media platforms. You got YouTube, you've got Facebook video, you've got Instagram, and people are expressing themselves in different ways now. But it also seems like books are still relevant. And first off, are books still relevant? Obviously they are, because you wouldn't have a business if they weren't. But how are they relevant these days? And why is it important to have a book?
Sure. I mean, for the book business, it's a terrible time for just what you said. The younger generations are all about video and not so much about the printed word. So the book publishers are sliding. And I think their numbers are really propped up by children's books and by the classics. I think Hemingway still makes more money for his publisher than 50 of the top current authors combined. So it's just a tough time to be a book publisher. To be an author, it's the best time ever, because people have so much respect for anyone who actually has a book. Here's my book. The other guy has a white paper, has a website that's identical with his competitors, has the leave behinds, whatever they are, that look like everybody else's. But somebody's got a book. When you're the author, you're the authority. And that's even more true today when people are reading, I think, fewer books than ever.
So a book is almost like a calling card these days. You can put it out there. You've got this book, and people can almost read more about you and learn more about your business that way, right?
Yeah, and then Jay Abraham, my mentor and marketing guru extraordinaire, says that a business owner or CEO needs a book the way everybody else in his or her organization needs a business card. And when you have a book, you control the experience that the reader has. On a website, people can kind of move around. They can click here, go there. But with a book, you dictate beginning, middle, end. This is the story. This is the path you're going to take. And the other thing is that when people look at a website, they kind of glance at it. They'll poke around, but they don't really read all that carefully. And all the guidance over the last 5 years, if you're doing a website, more video, fewer words. So if you have a story to tell and it's more complicated than can be told in a 50-second video, how do you differentiate yourself? Well, there's nothing like a book. So, we've done 550 here at Business Ghost. So I'm as big a believer in books today as I ever have been.
So what do you guys do for authors, and how do you work with them, and how do you get them set up?
Sure. We organize the book with them. We help them determine the audience. We interview them. We write the chapters. We send them the chapters for their review. We edit them, and then we publish. We do the cover design, interior design, all that stuff. ISBN number, barcode, put it up on Amazon. Sort of one-stop shopping. Take care of the printing, the rest of it. But the key thing is that a book is kind of a coming out party for your next iteration of yourself. It's your 2.0. It's your coming out party. So the question is not who have you been or who are you now? The real question is, how do you want your market to perceive you going forward? That's really what the book is about. And so the process of writing a book, before we even write one word, we go back to that first question, say, who do you want to be next in the world? This is how you've been known. This is what you're known for. Where do you want to go? What would you like your image to be? What kind of clients do you want to work with? Do you want more of what you've got now? Great, let's do that. Or is there a different, higher level, more lucrative, better client out there, and you want to get them? So our job is to help you identify what your message is going forward. Find the language for that will be the basis of all the marketing that you do, from the language on your website to your elevator pitch and everything in between. All that derives from the language in the book. So it's sort of not just, we're not just a bunch of writers. And the other thing about ghostwriters is that a lot of writers hate business, and they don't understand business people, and they don't know how to stand up to them. And we don't have any problem with that. We can politely but firmly stand up to you and sort of make sure that you don't drive the book over the cliff. But the main thing is that we help you determine, how are you going to present yourself going forward? Who are you going to be? Who is the real you? What's the next you that's going to step out into the universe and say, here I am, hire us?
So you're kind of like cultivating an image there, and you're cultivating an image for the author, and it's almost like engineering a path for yourself, with the book kind of being like a beacon light to lead you along the way, right?
That's it. That's beautifully put. The book is your beacon, and the image I like is the lighthouse. A lot of times people, you're either a lighthouse or a flashlight in the business world. If you're a flashlight, you're like, where are the prospects? Come here. You're trying to, hey, gotcha. Or you're a lighthouse, and you're this big, beautiful lighthouse on a New England shore. And I don't know how the lighting just changed when I did that, but the thing is that you're sending out a beacon. It's like, this is who I am. This is how I help. This is how I serve. This is what I know. This is what I do. And the ships come to you. I'd rather be a beacon than a flashlight, and that's what you get to be when you have a book.
Well, when we all know that the entrepreneurial journey can often be a really dark journey, and the road is extremely rocky. I can tell you, I've fallen on my face, flat on my face a million times, been bruised, battered, depressed, happy. It's like an amazing roller coaster. It's the best roller coaster I've ever been on in my life, but it might be a fatal one. But I guess my question for you is, at what point in the entrepreneurial journey should somebody start to consider putting a book together?
That's a great question. I think when you can afford it, I'd love to say it's the first thing you got to do. Go out there and get your book. Hire us immediately. I don't know if that's true, because it's not cheap. It starts in the low 20s and then goes into the 30s or 40s if you want something really big and complicated. We do books as marketing tools starting at $19.5 for a smaller book up to about $29.5. So that's real money. And if you're an entrepreneur, keeping the lights on is critical. So I'm not quite sure I would start with the first thing, what I know about starting a business is you don't start with a website and you don't start with books. You start with clients and customers. So you go out there and you hustle. And you find people and you say to them, I'll work for a third of what it would normally cost. I'm going to put up a website, and then I want you to refer me out to other people, or first make money. Okay. Don't spend money. Don't sit there, what should the design of my business card be? Forget all that. The first thing to do is, and I know this because I did the same mistake everybody else did. I fell in love with a product. I started a business. I ended up with $33,000 of credit card debt, no income. And, that was not a happy day. That was the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. I then learned how to start a business and did it the right way the second time. And if I started another one, which please God I won't, because it's like enough already. But if I do, I'll really know how to do it right that time. Yeah. But, I'm 23 years into this business, almost 24 years. And I sit here and say, why didn't it take me 2 years to get where I am instead of 24 years? Well, that's life. Maybe a smarter guy would have gotten here sooner.
Yeah, it's so funny because it all it could have really taken is somebody tapping you on the shoulder saying, "Hey, don't spend all this money. Work on getting some clients first. Build it up slowly. Continue your law practice or whatever business you were in at first, and then do it slowly like that." But in all honesty, we get such blinders on, and we get tunnel vision, and it's almost like it's an unstoppable force. You've got to fail at least a couple of times before you're going to find the promised land. And if the promised land comes,
you got to squeegee the stupid out of yourself, And the only way you do that is by spending time and money. I mean, when I was fairly new in the business, about 4 years, I moved about every year, so I can just think about where I lived, and that tells me what year it is. So, I met a guy who was a legend in the insurance business. He invented some sort of approach. And he was worth, or he had made $87 million using that approach. So God knows what he was worth at the time. Older gentleman. And I told him about a business idea I had, and he said, "Well, what you do is this: you don't just throw away what you've got." He said, "Start the new thing on the side, and then let it get so big that it squeezes out what you're doing."
Right.
And that's really smart. So, I mean, if you have a day job, I'm not going to tell you to quit your day job. I'm going to say, it's time to give up Netflix and evenings and weekends. Still go to the gym, but do what you have to do to take care of yourself. But, my mentor told me 23 and a half years ago, the secret of success is bust your butt. That's not the word he used, but that's it. And, 23 and a half years later, I can tell you that's exactly, that's all I know,
Yeah.
That's all, bust your butt.
Yep. Same here. Same here. So let's talk a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey. When did you decide that you wanted to be a business owner, and how did that come about? What was, I guess you'd say, the straw that broke the camel's back? What said, "I'm done with whatever I'm doing right now. I'm going to go and I'm going to make this happen"?
I never wanted to be a business owner. I still don't,
Mm-hmm.
My dream was to write novels and sit by the pool and toss one in not into the pool, but to New York and Hollywood every year. And, they'd send me more money and it would be great. Sold 3 novels to Simon & Schuster in my late 20s when I was still practicing law, and couldn't sell the 4th one. Hated law, didn't want to be a lawyer. Worked for about 1.5 years for 2 firms, and one all but fired me, and the other one did sit me down and fire me. And I wanted to be a writer guy. All I wanted to do was write. So I started that other business that I mentioned in 92, and then in 93, and then in 94, I was totally out of everything. And I went into a program for people who are just jacked financially. And I met a guy that first night, January 31st, 1994, the night that changed my life. And it was a cold winter night here in New England, and he stood outside the building where the meeting was held, and after that, with me for about 20, 25 minutes. And he says later on, he saw something in me. And a couple of weeks later, he took me and sat me down at a Dunkin' Donuts in Cleveland Circle in Brookline, took out a single sheet of paper and asked me, "Okay, how much money do you need to live on? What's your rent? What do you spend on food? How much is your T-Pass, the pass to get you on the transit?" And we went through all the expenses. What's your debt? And it was $900 a month on credit cards and no income. So we basically figured out on a single sheet of paper how much money I needed to earn. And he owned 4 of the top restaurants in Boston. He was a really smart business guy. And he said, "I work with a lot of you creative people. You can't do your best work if you can't put bread on the table or pay your rent." So he said, "You're going to offer writing classes. You're going to rent space from somebody. You're going to buy chairs and a whiteboard, and you're going to offer private classes because you love to write, and this will make you a better writer." And so we figured out on a single sheet of paper, and I wish I kept it, how much I needed to make an hour in order to support my life so that I would have 20 hours a week left over for my writing. And that's how it started. And I rented space, and I went around Boston with flyers, putting them everywhere, filled up the first 2 classes, filled up more. And I mean, my record keeping was so bad. I was supposed to have like 15 people in a class. And one morning, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, I'd sold 21 spaces, 22 spaces. And it's like, but gradually that led, and I'll wrap this up, gradually that led to people saying, "Consult with me." And then one day they started saying, "Just write it for me." And and then one day about 10 years after the business started, I looked at the numbers. I realized I was making a whole lot more from ghostwriting than from teaching writing classes or consulting. So I just said, okay, and I'm going to rename the company Business Ghost. And eventually I hired my first writer, and now we have 22. Now we have a team of 50. We do about 120 books a year. It's unbelievable. And I'm a guy who's a knucklehead in business, and I now lead a payroll of 50, and we serve incredibly high level people starting out, people at all levels.
That's a so really big question I have about the beginning of Business Ghost is, when did you start thinking about scale? Because I understand the process of ghostwriting and writing books for other people, but how did you come up with a system for scaling that concept to the point where you can actually create a company out of it, and do it more on a bigger level?
Yeah, I don't remember the exact moment, but there was a moment where I realized, I guess, that I could sell more than I could produce myself. So I started bringing in one other writer, and then eventually a second, and so on. And I had an assistant, part-time assistant, a full-time assistant, and I went on Shark Tank, as you mentioned, and I didn't really need the money for the business. It kind of grows organically. I don't need an investor, but the exposure that the show gave me was incredible, and it runs every 8 weeks on CNBC, and the phone rings whenever it does. And the sharks were incredibly respectful and polite to me. And I later realized, watching other episodes, that's not how they are a lot of the time. And one of them said, I think it was Robert Herjavec, he said, you've done what 0.0001% of writers has ever done. You figured out how to make a successful business out of doing writing, which you love. And I was like, wow, that's right. So the show, they didn't fund me, which is fine. I'm not like a fire hydrant nozzle that you can, scale. But it was like a national televised intervention on me to accept the idea that I wasn't just a writer guy who was shamefully running a ghostwriting business out of his back pocket so as to pay the bills. And by now I'm married, I have 4 kids, so there are a lot more bills. And instead, I'm a guy who's running a successful business. I mean, how did this happen?
Mm-hmm.
I went to Disney to take Disney Institute courses on customer service. I went to Sandler to get sales training, went to Strategic Coach to learn how how entrepreneurship works. I listened to every audio and everything you could get on negotiating, and I got sued twice because I had a faulty contract. So I learned how to tighten up my contract. Everything was just, there was no plan. There was no, there is no plan. It's just simply, the only plan has been cash flow and grow. Make enough money to pay for my family, and then keep the business growing. And and now it's a super professional business. I have an incredible team. I'm incredibly proud of them. I'll be away next week. And the ultimate test of an entrepreneurial business is, can the entrepreneur go away? I'll be out of the country. I'll glance at the email, of course, because I'm paranoid and all that stuff. But the team will be fine without me. In fact, they love it when I'm gone. So.
Hope they don't love it too much. So that's pretty awesome. And I think an important point there for the audience is this, whenever you're growing, you're going to get uncomfortable. Whenever you're going, whenever you need to grow, you're going to get uncomfortable. And I think that's something to realize. So if you're out there and you're trying to start something up and it comes to a point where you start dealing with things like contracts and you start dealing with things like employees and it seems a little bit overwhelming, that's the time for you to step up. That's the time for you to grow. That's the time when you have the chance to grow your business or your project or whatever it is you're doing. Look for that chance to be uncomfortable, because that's where you'll start to make it. A question about picking your team and developing your team. So a large part of your team is obviously writers, right? And the same types of creative types of people that you have. How do you strike that balance in your team between creative people and business savvy? Do you conduct trainings for them? Did you have to cultivate that in your culture? How did that come about?
Well, we look for writers. It's a great question. We look for writers who are open to the idea of saying positive things about the business world. Now, most creative people are, how do you say this politely? They're sort of allergic to business. Because they think that anything that has to do with money or business is going to corrupt their relationship with their muse. So we can't really work with those people who have that attitude. Instead, and I had that attitude, I had to overcome it, and I did. So we look for people who have a background in business writing. Number one, we look for people who are nice. We're just nice people and I like to say, we borrow the line from the Ritz-Carlton, we're ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. Mm-hmm. So high level of respect, within the team and for our clients. When it comes to hiring writers, they're interviewing the clients. So they have to have a positive attitude toward the business. You know, you see the big, like the 10 city, the 1%, when that was going on. I mean, what was it? What was the thing in Wall Street? Occupy.
Yep.
You know,
yep.
you see or the protests against the World Trade Organization in Seattle, and all of these people are, you know, declaiming corporations. What are they using? Their iPhones. What are they wearing? Levi's. What are they wearing on their feet? Who made those sneakers? There's your phone. There's, you know, Steve Jobs coming back to tell us. You know, like, it's like, you know, don't you realize that the very things you're protesting against have given you the easiest life in human history? So, you know, I'm not saying that the business world is perfect or anything like that. Of course, there are excesses and problems and so on. But at the same time, if you don't have a respect for what it takes to be a successful business person, you cannot work for Business Ghost, because you're disrespecting our clients. They put their lives into their businesses, into their financial services firms, into their law firms, into their consultancies. You know, if you can't respect that, then I'm not going to pay you. So it's really that simple. Are you a nice person? Are you a great writer? Are you personable? You can conduct a great interview. Do you respect the concept of the business, which most writers don't? And you know, this is a real problem for people, because they go out and they hire an individual ghostwriter. They look at the website and it says, I do white papers, I do this, I do that, I do books, I do this, I do that. And then I go, oh, great. How much do you charge? $5,000. I mean, the average writer will write a book and paint your house for $5,000. But when you get an average writer, you're going to get an average book.
Yep.
And you know, it's like, do you really want an average book to represent you in the marketplace? Is that a great idea or not? You know, so it's sort of like, you have to have a writer who understands, who respects it, and then has the courage to push back and say, wait a minute. When you just said such and such, the reader's going to say, you got to be kidding me. I mean, that's absurd. So, and then they're going to go, yeah, I know, you're right. I guess I can't say that. No, you can't. So, you know, so you have to be courageous as a writer, and you have to be able to step up and say to the client, this is what I think. And you cannot do that if you're afraid of the client, or if you despise what the client stands for. And, you know, that's how a lot of creative people feel. That's how I felt. So I get it, you know, but I'm not going to hire those.
No, that's a very big point. And I think, you know, again, everybody thinks of entrepreneur. I guess the people who have never done entrepreneurship before, they think of entrepreneurs and they think of guys in suits who are ruling the world and pushing down the little man. But a lot of people don't realize the journey that it takes, and you know, that a lot of entrepreneurs are out there. They've come from nothing and they've built something up just based off of the strength of their own backs, based off of their sweat, their blood, and their tears. And you've got to respect that if you're going to be telling somebody's story. Let's talk about your process when you're working with an entrepreneur or you're working with an author. What kinds of things do you do when that person first comes in the office? They say, hey, I want to write a book. You know, I've got this great widget and I've come from this place to create this widget. How can I tell my story?
Right. Now, they may have created a widget. They may also have a financial services company they're trying to market. They may be a consultant and they're looking for more clients. They may be the CEO of a business and they're trying to explain their business to stakeholders, be it the media, the government, potential investors. It may be a business that's been around for a while and is in danger of losing its culture because the new employees, the new hires have no idea. It's just another job to them, whereas to the 11 people who started it, it was, you know, blood, sweat, tears, and toil. So there are a lot of different reasons why. The first thing we do is we just listen for, are you a nice person? Because if you're a jerk, we don't want your money because, you know, I've worked with enough of those.
Yeah, that's kind of like a marriage relationship. You're going to be working with these people for a while, so you got to kind of like them, right?
And at the same time, I'm going to be subjecting them to my team members, and I have to protect my team members from jerks and from noxious people and from you know, people who are inappropriate sexually over the phone, which has happened on a few occasions, or people who just plain jerks. So, you know, you can't screen all the time for them, but kind of you can tell when somebody's a little okay. So that's the first thing. The second thing we're looking for is there a real business or personal purpose to doing the book? And I always say to them in the first call, in the sales call, I say, look, you know, I got to understand why you want to do this, because otherwise 8 months from now, you're going to come back to me and say, you talked me into it. I mean, like, but you called me. What are you talking about? So I want to know, why do you want to do the book? And I want to know that you have realistic goals. If you tell me, because I'm going to be sitting next to Oprah, I'm like, well, I can't guarantee that. You know, I can guarantee that you're going to have a book that's good enough so that you could sit next to Oprah. But you know, I'm going to be a New York Times bestselling. Do you really want to go out and sell copies of books? No. Well, then you're not going to. You know, we can show you how to jack your book up legitimately on Amazon or BarnesandNoble.com, and you can do that for no money. And then you're a bestseller, and forget about. But so it's like, why are you doing it? What is a realistic outcome for you? What are you hoping? Sometimes our clients aim low. You know, they say, well, I'd like to do such and such. I'm like, are you kidding me? You can do 10 times that with your book. So that's the first thing, is let's get the objectives. And then at that point, proposal, agreement, deal, great. Then the first thing we do is we work out in a 90-minute call with you. And I have a person who is the world's greatest at this. She's been with me for 14 years. We plan more successful books than anyone in human history, and she's a big part of the reason why. We want to know 3 things. Who's the audience? Okay, we don't start off with what goes in the book. We start off with, whom are you trying to influence? Mm-hmm. And the second question is, where do you want to take them? Do you want them to hire you? Do you want them to think differently about you in your work life or in your career? What is it that you want them to be doing differently as a result of reading the book, either with you or in their private lives? And then the third thing is, what body of knowledge in your head will convince those people to take that next step with you or with in their own lives, if only they knew that you know what you know. There's a knowledge gap. You have all this knowledge in your head. They don't know you have it. The book is going to connect them to you by closing that knowledge gap. And then we work that, and then we turn that into a table of contents, which creates the flow of information from you to the reader. And we do all that in 90 minutes, because we only work with people who are too busy to talk to us. And after 550 books, we have a kitchen-tested process, which is great. Then we match you up with the appropriate writer. We only need an hour per interview, per chapter. So in an hour on a phone call, we can get from you enough information so that we can write your entire the entire chapter that we're talking about in that call. We don't do broad-ranging topics, conversations about everything. We just stay in the table of contents. Now we're talking about chapter 1. Give us the hour. So if it's a 100-page book, and we believe in shorter books today, 100, 150, sometimes longer, 100-page book, 12 chapters, 8 pages a chapter, or 10, let's say 10 and 10, 10 pages, 10 chapters, 10 hours on the phone, we can knock off the interviewing in a day and a half with you, or over 3 half days, or over a couple of weeks. And we start feeding you chapters a week at a time. You go over them, you give us your comments immediately, you tell us what you like, what you hate, do more of this, do less of that. We're working from the transcript of the call. We're not freelancing. We're not putting words in your mouth. The book has to sound like you. If it succeeds, if it sounds like you, it's a success. If it sounds like us, it's a failure. And then when that's done, we print it, we design it, cover, interior, layout, ISBN number, copyright in your name, not ours. Our name is not on the book. We're ghostwriters. It's your book. We have no back end. We're work made for hire. We charge you a fee for the whole service, and then we're out. TV, movie rights, yours. Back of the room sales, yours. Speaking engagement money, yours. New clients, all yours. That's it. If you're happy, you'll tell your friends. Maybe you'll come back and do another book. But that's how we get paid. And then we put up on Amazon. We put up on BarnesandNoble.com. We give you 100 copies, and we give you the phone number for the publisher, for the printer, so that you're able to order as many or as few copies whenever you want directly from the printer with no surcharge from us. I've basically just given you my whole sales pitch. So.
I like it. I went to your website, and one of the things I really appreciated by the video on your landing page is the honesty in it. You know, you say we're not the cheapest. We're actually pretty expensive. We're the Ritz-Carlton of ghostwriting, and if you want to work with us, it's going to be an investment, but it's going to be worth it. And I definitely appreciate that honesty, because nowadays you go around to different landing pages and you get this pitch. It's like, hey, do you want to write a book in 3 days? You know, we can get you on the New York Times bestseller list and this, that. And I really did appreciate your honesty, and I can see why you're good at what you do. And just from the service that you guys provide, I can see definitely how somebody who is successful in business, they're not going to have time to sit down for a year and write down a book or anything like that. So this is a valuable service that you're providing. You're actually extracting the knowledge from these people, getting it out there into a coherent format, and really, you're not just providing a service to them, you're providing a service to everybody else, and getting this knowledge out there to the world, because otherwise these people really wouldn't have time to do it.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And there's another aspect, and thank you for that, Chris. I appreciate all that. The other thing that we do is that, if you're running a business, it's hair on fire all the time. There's no downtime, and there's always another crisis. There's always a fire to put out. You know how much time you have to think through, who do I want to be next? Zero. And that's true for just about everybody. Most people don't take the time or make the time to sort of like go on a private retreat and figure it out or bring in a facilitator. So one of the benefits of working with us is that you get to hit the pause button just long enough to figure out, well, where do I want to go in life? What do I want next? I'm doing this over and over again. Is this satisfying? Do I want to die at my desk X number of years from now doing exactly what I'm doing? Or is there a 2.0 for me? And we help you find that. And I've had clients who, and then this kind of like shocked me. A lot of people in the business world have no idea what they're doing. I mean, they know what they do, but they don't have a process. It's like they somehow get a client, and they somehow get paid, and they somehow do stuff for the client, and somehow the client's happy, and they're like, fool another one. But the thing is that, I've had this one super successful international business consultant say to me, until you came along, I didn't know what I did. And I loved that. That made me laugh. That's like so funny, but it's true. We're so busy doing that we don't have time to stop and say, what do I want? What do I want out of life? What should my life look like? What should my work life? What should my company look like? Where do I want to go from here? Because otherwise momentum will just sort of, keep you kind of churning in the same direction, but you're never going to get to say, I want to go that way. So when people work with us, they have the opportunity to have those kinds of conversations and figure out where they want to go next with their careers, with their lives. And it's exciting. So that's something else they get out of working with us.
So it's almost like an audit. Like you're doing a kind of like soul audit when you're writing this book.
A little bit. I mean, we get under the hood a little bit. I had a guy, financial services guy. I love this. Very successful guy. And we're going over the agreement. And I'm telling this the confidentiality clause. He's like, yeah, okay, but do you know about the deficit? The $20 trillion deficit we have? It's going to take down the country. Okay, I said, I didn't know that. Just, in this clause over here. And he said, yeah, but the deficit, all he talked about, he was obsessed with the $20 trillion deficit. I'm like, okay, let me look at this guy's website. Not a word. So I call him up and say, what's the deal? It's like you can't stop talking about the $20 trillion deficit. There's not a word about it on your website. I said, well, I'm afraid if I put it on the website, people will think I'm a nut. I'm like, but you are a nut. You got to own it. Because the thing is that, he can write a book and never mention the deficit, but as soon as people sit down with him and it starts coming out of his mouth, like The Exorcist, there's no way that they're going to run in horror out of his office. Mm. So what you have to do is you have to fly your freak flag. You have to own your individuality. And by that, I mean, in his case, we did a book that was 70% about the deficit and 30% about investing. Why? Because for the people who feel the same way he does, they will have finally found their man, their tribal leader, in Seth Godin's phrase. And the other people were never prospects of this in the first place. And guess what? All these folks hang together. They all go to the same golf clubs. They all go to the same gun clubs. They all go to the same whatever clubs. And this is where, and this guy gets passed around now from one guy to the next who feels that the $20 trillion deficit is the be-all and end-all. If you're not taking that into account when you're investing, you're a dead man walking. So, it's like, so now his website's all about the deficit. And if you don't like it, leave. But the thing is that if you do like it, he has no competition because he's the only guy in the world who feels this way and has the courage to say, this is who I am. This is what I stand for. So, right. That's a values clarification. And you know what? My computer is at 1%. So let's keep talking, but I got to plug in because I'm not.
It's all good, man. Yeah. The process you just described there, it's kind of like something I've seen a lot of people teach. And I teach some business classes for London Real. And we teach to try to find your 1,000 true fans, like the Joseph Campbell article. And that's so important. If you've got something that sets you apart, you can start to stand up to some of the bigger guys. You can start to create moats around your business to protect yourself and to really set yourself up for some success.
I got to say, Chris, I've just destroyed all my credibility because I'm like talking and sounding so passionate and intelligent, but my computer's at 0% if I don't like plug in. And because the thing is that, there we go. It's like I'm great at what I do, but at everything else I'm a knucklehead. I mean, like the car ruts in my 8 months. My kids are like, when are you going to get that fixed? I'm like, well. Anyway, what's your next question?
No, man, it's cool. I can tell you that I'll have my on days. I'll have my on days, and then my girlfriend will take me down. She'll bring me back down to earth because I'm a knucklehead at everything else too. So,
yeah, my wife says I have no fine motor skills. We have 4 kids, so I don't know. But where do we go from here?
So the next question I have is about the New York Times bestseller list, right? So It seems like whenever anybody sets out, they want to get on that New York Times bestseller list, and it's a big thing for a lot of authors. But how does somebody get on it? Is it that important? And a lot of these New York Times bestsellers that we see, are they there because they're good books, or are they there because they had a lot of money and they were able to buy themselves onto the list?
That's a great question. It's a great series of questions. Psychologically, people want to be on the New York Times bestseller list because people are competitive. And they understand that in the publishing world, that's sort of the top of the tree. If you're a New York Times bestselling author, that's like a baseball player can write HOF after his, the initials for Hall of Fame after his initials and after his name when he signs his name. Nobody else can do that. It changed my life when I became a New York Times bestselling author. I found out at 6 a.m, and one Monday morning that a book that I had done had cracked the list for the first time, and I'm staring at it and going, unbelievable. And then 20 minutes later, at 6:20, an agent called to yell at me for something. So and it's like, well, it only lasted 20 minutes. So, but oh well. But the thing is, I need that credibility because this is my business. You don't need to be a New York Times bestselling author to be credible at what you do. You can become an Amazon bestseller, which just means you can put national bestseller on your book. If you crack one of the top 100 sublists on Amazon for an hour, you are a national bestseller for all time. Ask your list, 7 o'clock on a Monday night when there's no big game on, or Tuesday night when everybody's home. Ask them all to buy the book at the same hour because Amazon re-ranks every hour. And give them something in exchange. Give them access to an exclusive webinar that you'll do where you can just sell them more stuff anyway. Tell them that you'll donate an extra copy of your book to a women's shelter for every copy that they buy. Tell them you'll send them 2 free copies with every one they buy. Guess what? Now they're going to give them out to your friends and their friends and market for you. So there are a lot of ways. So that's what we tell our clients. So you can be a national bestseller in an hour, and then you can put that sticker on your book, national bestseller. It's all good. New York Times bestsellers, there are several ways that books become New York Times bestsellers. One is that they're just simply newsworthy, they're big, and they're important. Hillary Clinton's book is a New York Times bestseller. Why? Because everybody's buying it. So that's one way. The second is that you can hire a marketing company, and they can get you on 20/20 and 60 Minutes and all those shows, and they can pitch you to those shows. They can't guarantee it, but these friendships go back, and they're able to make some magic happen. And when your book is on one of those shows, chances are, you're going to get a lot of bestseller attention, and then all the other shows are going to follow suit, and they're going to see you go up the list. The third way to get on it is that there are guys you can pay $150,000, $200,000, $250,000, and they will game the system, and they'll arrange to have copies of your book purchased at various outlets that the New York Times uses when it weighs its numerical algorithm or whatever and comes up. I tried to sound smart there. I said algorithm to determine what's a bestseller. So those are the 3 ways you get on the list. Ultimately, you have to decide: am I going into the book business, which means I'm going to try to sell copies, or am I using the book to build my business, which is the smart approach? I have a financial advisor. We did a book for $35,000, He went to Houston. He was in Southern California. He went to Houston the weekend it came out. Went on the radio to promote the book, and a woman bought an annuity from him over the phone after she heard him on the radio in Houston. And his commission on the annuity was $42,000. So he paid off the book with one. It's like, how many books would you have to sell? And were you making $5, $10, $20, $15 a book to make, $42,000?
Right.
It's like the book business is a dying business, except for my end of it. And it's only because the publishers are so stupid that I have a chance to have my business come along and work. Use the book to build your business. Don't worry about the New York Times bestseller list. And that's just, it's an ego thing. It's, I want a pat on the head thing. Well, you know what? Get the pat on the head somewhere else. And just, get the best possible book, have it out there making money. And then remember that, it doesn't even matter if anybody buys a copy of your book. You want everybody to get it for free. Put it on your website as a free download that people can, so that they can just download it for free from your website in exchange for contact information. You can drip market them. They've got the book as a PDF, zero cost, frictionless, done. That's a much smarter way to go. Don't worry about the New York. If it happens, great, but it should not be the focus if you're using the book as a marketing or branding tool.
Well, that's one thing I think in this information age, we're seeing more and more businesses giving things away for free. And they're giving them out in exchange for contacts, and those contacts are what leads to sales. And I think that's really important thing to realize. And I also think it bodes well for your business in that, like I said, there's an opportunity cost to not running your business and sitting down and running and just writing all the time. And I think that businesses like yours and they're going to become extremely important as we move forward in this age, because there's got to be other ways of extracting that information.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it comes down to what's the highest and best use of your time. Even if you like writing, and most people don't. Even if you're good at writing, and most people have never written a book before. Do you really want to go up that steep learning curve how much money could you be making? How much time could you spend with your wife and for husband and family? That you're not locked away in the room for the summer. Don't bother daddy, he's writing his book. Oh my God. Mm-hmm. Is that what you want to be? Is that I was at a funeral for a guy, 69 years old, who was a mentor of mine. He was a lawyer I worked with when I was a lawyer in the 80s. Died of a heart attack a couple of weeks ago. His whole family is sitting there, like, what just happened? It's like, we're not here forever. You really want to lock yourself away for, do something look, I have a lawn. I don't mow my lawn. I hire people to mow my lawn, But it's my lawn.
Yep.
Do what makes sense and delegate everything else. And if it makes sense to write a book, do it. And otherwise, call me at business, Michael at businesscoach.com.
Awesome. Well, Michael, seriously, this has been really informative. I think that, definitely for people out there who are looking to write their books or who are looking to tell their stories, or business owners who are looking to expand their brand and to deliver a calling card like a book, which is, like you said, probably the best calling card in the world. This is definitely something they should check out. Real quick question for you, Michael. And this is something I just want to get into just because I think you're a really interesting person. But if you could go back and talk to yourself at the start of this, right? And you were writing your story, right? Writing your book out. What would the first chapter look like? Like, what would the first scene look like? Where would that scene begin? And maybe this is a crazy question, but
it's a great question. What I would tell myself from 23 years ago is get educated as fast as you can. Learn, take sales training, take marketing training, take customer service training, take entrepreneurship training. Do it all now, and just I wasn't married at the time. I wasn't in a relationship. Wasn't in anything. Just spend half my time running the business and the other half essentially creating my own personal MBA, but not with spreadsheets which I don't understand. Hire people to do the stuff you don't understand, but just get smart fast, and so that you're the best possible business owner. And then the other thing is, don't take it all so personally, because as you said at the beginning of the call, there's always stuff going on. There always going to be people who don't appreciate you, don't like your work, who aren't happy, think you're going to make them happy, and then it finds out that they're not. It's very hard, but you got to let that roll off your back. And making payroll is a struggle sometimes, or it was in past years. Oh my God, that's just business. And we've all been there, and we've all had that experience, and you'll be fine. The thing is, you just have to bust your butt and don't let anything distract you from your to-do list. Never let anything come between you and your to-do list. Whatever's on the list, you can do it now, you can do it later. People will be happy if you do it now. So just bust your butt and have faith. And if it were any simpler, this is the last thing I'll say. I've got a buddy who runs one of the biggest fruit and vegetable companies, over $50 million. It started with nothing. And what he says is that getting to the top is easy. Staying there is the hard thing. So, you get lazy, you get other people get into your market, but all I can say is get up every day, bust your butt, and it'll all be okay.
That is absolutely sage advice. Michael, I want to thank you so much for coming on today. It's at businessghost.com, correct? That's your website?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And they can write to me. You can write to me at michael@businessghost.com. And then if you do, you'll see a little thing. I'm running the Boston Marathon. I'm 59 years old. I'm going to run my 8th Boston Marathon for Dana-Farber. So as a fundraiser for Dana-Farber. So please go on the website. Even if you don't want to hire us, just drop me an email. You'll see the link. It'll come up on return and when you write to Michael at Business Ghost, just say hi and then just send $100. Do something because I'm trying to raise another 22,000, make it 100,000 lifetime.
Real quick, what's the story there? Who's the run for, and what was the purpose?
Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. It's one of the top cancer research groups in the world. They're here in Boston, and the runners raise $4 or $5 million a year for basic research. Every penny goes to research, and so I'm trying to raise 22,000. I've raised 78,000 for them over the years. This will be my 8th Boston Marathon next April. So the link to how to give is in my email, the body of my email. So if you just drop me a note and say hi, then I'll write back to you, and you'll have a link.
And I'll get the link up there on the show notes for this episode. I want to make sure that people are able to get to that. And thank you for doing that. And good luck with the marathon. And seriously, keep doing this amazing work. And for everybody else out there listening, thank you for listening. And get out there and live your best lives.